and welcome to the CultCast, the best hour-long Apple conversation you're going to hear all week long. I'm your host, Neil Caney. Joining me today, we have D. Griffin Jones. Hey, Griffin.
Good evening. I'm coming to you not from a bathroom. I'm in my office.
Yeah. Right. We'll explain that in a second. And I know we have Lewis Wallace. Hey, Lewis.
Hello. Fantastic to be here. Also, not in a bathroom.
Right. As Griffin just mentioned, I'm in my father-in-law's bathroom in Sun City, Arizona. We're here for a few days visiting my wife's folks, and there's no good place for me to record. So I'm actually in a bathroom, which I can give you a quick tour. There's the shower curtain.
Wow.
And here's the rest of it. So hopefully this won't be too bad. And I'm also using my new AirPods Pro 3 as this, the sound source. So if I sound kind of bad, then it's this is now you know why.
If this show, because Lando's recording from a bathroom, if this show is much longer than other episodes, you also know why.
Yeah, we won't get into that. Anyway, well, we're going to be talking about this week Apple's new cheap MacBook, which is sending PC makers into a panic, and quite rightly so. We've got Google coming in to the rescue Apple and Siri from vaporware. We're going to talk about the next iPhone Air and what may or may not solve its biggest problem. And then also the battle over CarPlay, which is heating up. And then we're going to talk also about the new iOS 26.1 features you should try. There's actually some new stuff in there that's worth checking out. And we're gonna play some fun new game. I'd like to thank our sponsor, NordStellar. Thanks very much, NordStellar, for sponsoring this week's episode of the CultCast. This goes out to all the chief technology officers and the chief information officers of all the CEOs that listen to our podcast. NordStellar is the platform that detects cyber threats before they threaten your company. It looks at data breaches, it monitors the dark web, it checks for vulnerabilities and protects against cyber squatting. It safeguards your employees and customers from account takeovers. It also protects from phishing and identity theft and abuse. It detects, it works by detecting leaked credentials on the dark web early, allowing you to take action before they're exploited by hackers. And it'll even monitor your partners. It'll keep an eye on people you're partnered up with and identifies third-party data leaks and targeted attacks that may put your company at risk. This is a trusted platform built by the experts behind NordVPN out of Norway. And it offers flexible pricing plans that scales your business as your business grows. There's competitive early entry pricing for small businesses, and it allows you to get proactive about protecting your company from cyber threats. So most companies only act after a breach, so be the one that's prepared. Defend your business with NordStellar, get an exclusive offer, and lock your 10% discount on NordStellar with a coupon code CultCast10. That's CultCast10 by going to nordstellar.com/CultCast. Just mention it to NordStellar. All right. Thank you very much, NordStellar, for sponsoring us this week. The first story we're going to be talking about is this new MacBook that Apple is preparing that has the entire PC industry in a complete tizzy because it's going to decimate the rest of the industry. They're freaking out, apparently. Lewis, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, and that's the fantastic headline on Cult of Mac story. Apple's upcoming budget laptop has PC makers, quote, freaking out. The new Mac, it's codenamed J700. We've heard about this before. It's currently in testing and early production with the goal of launching in the first half of next year. And supposedly Apple's planning to price this well under $1,000 by using cost-saving components, basically bits and pieces from previous products, while maintaining the design quality and ecosystem integration that all of us Mac users expect. Apple's going to be trying to get students, businesses, casual users who, just basically browse the web and do email and stuff. Also aimed at iPad customers who might prefer a traditional laptop form factor with an integrated keyboard. So some of the stuff that is inside this is it's going to run on an iPhone processor rather than a Mac specific chip like an M1 or M4. M5 is latest, right? This is the first time Apple has used a smartphone processor in a Mac. However, internal testing shows this chip can outperform the M1 processor used in M1 MacBooks. Let's see. Also supposedly going to use a lower-end LCD display that's slightly smaller than the 13.6-inch screen on the MacBook Air. And here's where our headline came from. A quote from analyst Ben Bajarin. Is that how you pronounce his name? Ben Bajarin?
Baharan. I think the G is
Bajarin?
Baharan.
Okay. Let's just call him Ben. He said,
That's also, yeah.
the share of Windows in with a retail price less than $800 is 100%. And then this is a quote from him. This is why the entire PC ecosystem is freaking out over what's coming from Apple next year. So, fantastic news, right? What could be wrong with it? A affordable MacBook gets more people in the Apple ecosystem, lets businesses and schools actually use a Mac rather than going for some, dirt cheap Windows PC. Although I guess it's still not in the Chromebook area, but
Yeah. The other thing is Apple Silicon chips are so good and so powerful that the base M5 is honestly too much computer for most people. If you want to be in the Apple ecosystem, but you're not going to light up all 8 cores of it all the time if you're just browsing the web, in Safari or Google Chrome, and that's your main workflow, you're not using the M5 to the best of its ability. You're not using those media core engines or, the Thunderbolt lanes that it has on it. Just the A19 would be enough. It's just that Apple doesn't make an iOS device in that form factor, and people just want a computer shaped like a laptop instead of an iPad or a big iPhone. And I think this is hitting that market. And, the other area that makes Apple laptops so much more expensive is the research and development that they do in making those, precision unibody designs, making like these custom displays and all that, just taking advantage of the R&D that they've already done in the past to assemble a computer out of old parts. It'll just have a basic rectangular screen that the MacBook Air had before it became the M2 MacBook Air. It'll probably the 13.3 inch one. It'll use the same shell, like with the tapered design that it had before. They don't need to do any additional R&D to make those parts work. They've been making them for the 8 years before that. So that'll bring the price down as well.
you think it'll have the exact same form factor as like the M1 MacBook?
I bet it'll look exactly like the M1 MacBook Air.
Which is a gorgeous machine. I mean, looking at one right now,
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, the industrial design's top notch. Yeah, I mean, but the Apple already kind of competes, doesn't it, in the sort of sub $800 category? I mean, the M4 MacBook Air right now is on sale on Amazon for 750, I believe.
Yeah, on sale
And
on
it's been
Amazon. That's like 150 off the list, right?
yeah. I guess if you're talking about list price, yeah,
And
that's fair to say. But
they they were selling older M1 MacBook Airs at Walmart for a while, right? They tested that at I can't remember what the price point was, 650 or something.
yeah,
But
right.
those are all through Apple's secondary channels. I think this is maybe offering a product on Apple.com or for the people who walk into an Apple store who are like, I want to buy a MacBook. What's the cheapest one you have? And they say, well, it's $1,000 or, $900 if you have an, education discount. But, this is offering more
Yeah,
first party solutions for the people who want something new. They don't want to buy a used old thing. Because again, like
yeah,
you can get the M1 MacBook Air for $650 and, the M1 has more cores and a few extra features, but it's also not as good at single core performance. And at the low end of, computing needs, single core performance is what matters more than multi-core.
Yeah,
So,
and just to be clear, what Carmen said is well below 1,000. I mean, MacBook Air is already $999 straight from Apple. So for this to be, really attractive, what are we talking about? 600, 700 bucks? Could they possibly go that low?
my guess after thinking about this for a little while is it'll be $699 full price. And then in the education store, it'll be $649.
That sounds like a reasonable guess.
And that would be the cheapest MacBook Apple has ever made. And it would be only slightly more expensive than the Mac Mini. Like I think that price makes perfect sense. It won't be as low as some people are hoping. Like, it's not Apple's not going to make a $500 MacBook. Sorry.
you can pick up an iPad, can't you, with a Magic Keyboard for $600? That would be the closest.
Yeah, the cheapest way you could do that is the entry level iPad, which is I think 330, and then the special keyboard folio they have for that that isn't as nice as the full size Magic Keyboard, but you add that and I think that's like what $200 and that's, roughly the same ballpark. But again, there are a lot of old-fashioned people who, don't know that an iPad would be better for them and they're like, "Oh no, I want a laptop." and they want a
Old
laptop that looks like a
fashioned.
laptop.
That's uncharitable.
Focus, yeah. It's
Or they just want something, a reasonable sect of people who want, a real desktop operating system in Mac OS.
right, yeah, right, totally, yeah. I mean, like you said before, there's a that huge amount of, I mean, 40 years of investment in this, isn't there, basically? So, but it's, I mean, if you look, one of the interesting things about, if you look every day we publish, today in Apple history, and we look back often at like notable machines that were launched on that particular day in Apple history, and some are crazy prices, like they often were $7,000, $8,000, for what looks like a fairly middling machine these days. I mean, even at the time when it was released, it was a fairly sort of middle of the road machine. It wasn't even the super high end stuff. The prices have come down like crazy. It's like TVs, isn't it? To get a big flat screen TV used to cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Now you go pick one up for a few $100 at Walmart or Best Buy.
Hmm.
Same thing is happening with machines, isn't it? Computers. It's the prices have come down really low. And this isn't going to be
Or
any. I remember an interesting quote from Johnny Ive and Steve Jobs when they were asked. Steve Jobs, I think, was asked, why didn't they make a Chromebook? Why didn't they make a cheap or netbook? I think it was at the time. The cheap sort of low end offerings, and he said, "Well, we just can't make a good one, and we can't make a good computer at that price." And that has always been Apple's philosophy, I think, isn't it? Like it can't be something that's just slapped together that's really cheap and embarrassing. This will be a nice machine if it comes in that same chassis, like Lewis said, with it, the same body as the MacBook Air. I mean, the industrial design on it is top notch. It's absolutely beautiful, and the keyboard is fantastic. The touchpad is fantastic. I mean, if they can deliver something like that at this price, it's crazy. It's mad.
Yeah, and going back to Apple history, like, there are a lot of famous old Macs, like the Quadra 400 or 800, the Mac 2X, the
Wicked
Performa
fast, wasn't it?
9600. All of those expensive computers are the ones that Apple barely sold any of. If you go on like the secondhand market and see what's on Facebook Marketplace now, what do people have? What are the Macs that you find on eBay? It's all of the cheapest Macs. The
Cheap
Macintosh
ones, yeah.
Classic, which the Macintosh Classic was the first Macintosh under $1,000. Adjusting for inflation, it was still more like 2,500 today, but still, the cheapest Mac is like the most popular Mac, and it always will be.
Well, that's what I
So,
mean. It's like the cheapest Mac at the time, $2,500, and now they're talking about what a fifth of that.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Or the original iMac, which is supposed to be like the computer that brought the internet to the masses. The iMac, since the original one, has always floated around $1,300. Well, go back to 1998, $1,300 is like $2,000. So,
right.
yeah.
I saw an interesting. I mean, as an aside, I saw an interesting graphic saying that the iMac, right? I mean, Apple's prices they often don't change, do they? Even
Hmm.
when the cost of the components I think the iMac has been priced at what is it, $1,200 for more than a decade or more. Anyway, yeah, it's cool stuff. I think when is it supposed to be coming out?
Next year, first half of next year.
First half. Yeah. So what does that mean? Probably spring, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
When they do these things.
it's wild to think that an iPhone chip can outperform the M1. So like this little budget machine that they release is going to be better than the MacBook Air that I use every day.
Hmm.
Wow. I can upgrade by downgrading.
Yep. It'll
Right.
be an exciting
Yeah.
Mac. Who would have thought like 10 years ago that Apple would be expanding the Mac lineup to like double the size that it was in 2015? Like, they're adding so many, the Mac Studio, they added a new model there. They're adding a new model of laptop. Like, this is an exciting time to be a Mac user.
For sure, for sure. Except for the Mac Pro, of course.
RIP.
Right. All right, let's talk about this deal that Apple signed with Google. This is about the smarter Siri, and of course, Apple set a spring deadline. I'm sorry, a deadline for spring 2026 to deliver smarter Siri. This is giving itself an extra year to develop this, but of course, it looks like it's running into trouble. And now Apple has inked a deal with its frenemy Google. They planning to license Google's 1.2 trillion parameter AI model, Gemini, to power its long promised overhaul of Siri voice assistant. So this, I looked it up, and this is 1.2 trillion parameters. And this is 1.2 trillion. That's trillion with a T. This is a big model. It's almost as big as the current sort of state-of-the-art LLMs, which I did some quick research, and they seem to be coming in at about 1.6 trillion parameters. Although the next gen models, which are being worked on now, are anywhere between 5 to 7 trillion parameters, which is crazy. So the new Chat GPT 5 is going to be up there. And actually, the more parameters isn't necessarily better because you can overtrain the models and they become very inflexible with more parameters. So there's a fine art of balancing this. But this is no small model. This is actually a pretty
And
big
in
model.
case people aren't aware of like the lingo, like the number of parameters in a model roughly correlates to how many things it knows about and does. And
Yeah.
also, the bigger, the more parameters you have in the model, the more expensive it is to run. But often is the case where these super big models with trillions of in the trillions of parameters in size, they are you can sort of think of them as multiple models in one, where it won't be just like how browsing Safari on your M5 Ultra chip isn't going to light up every single processor core. Asking a very simple question to an LLM isn't going to use every single parameter in the model. Like it can run on a number of different subsets of the model using only a few parameters at a time for simpler different queries.
Well, a model with this many parameters, it's sort of like a general knowledge model, right? So it knows about a lot of things, a big wide variety, a big breadth of it can answer a big breadth of queries.
Mhm. And for reference, I think this also came out that the Apple Foundation model that runs in private cloud compute is only 150 billion parameters. So, an order of magnitude down. Granted, that foundation model is, you know, for a very specific purpose. It's not supposed to be Apple's like general knowledge model, but to a sense of scale, they're licensing a model from Google that'll be 10 times bigger than the one they're using on their cloud servers.
And important point here, it's going to be running on Apple's own servers, the private cloud compute servers. So it ensures that any user data is walled off from Google's infrastructure. And of course, this is important because Google's business is gathering and selling data about users to advertisers. So
Mhm.
they're charging, apparently Google's charging Apple 1 billion a year. And the early reports, and I think our own story said, whoa, that's a lot of money. But it's not. It's a crazy bargain. This is like if Apple had done this itself, it would likely have cost anywhere between a 10 and 100 times as much just to run the servers
Mhm.
in all the electricity that it's going to be consuming. So they're licensing this thing at a budget rate. And of course, they could just subtract this from the 20 billion that Google pays Apple every year to
Mhm.
be the default search engine in Safari. So
And Google's invested, I think, 100 billion invested in AI overall. So only getting paid back $1 billion per year is a kind of an insane deal.
it is an insane deal, and in fact, it makes you kind of question how the whole economics of the entire AI industry. I mean, they're
Yeah,
saying, like
that's a question a
uh,
lot of people have.
it is, like even if Apple could, if Apple's only paying a billion, I mean, I don't know, where's all the money going to be coming from to recuperate all this investment? I wonder, this is Tim Cook. He's known to strike good bargains. He definitely he keeps the margins as low as possible. So I'm kind of surprised that Google is only charging this much. It doesn't seem very much money at all.
They must have deployed their tactical Eddie Q with a bottle of champagne, just sent him over to
I don't know. Do you think
Mountain
Eddie
View.
Q's the negotiator, the tough, inflexible negotiator? Anyway,
Probably,
we'll
yeah.
see. It's I mean, it sounds kind of promising that they're gonna be, and all of this is a stopgap measure as well. Like Apple apparently, even though it's losing talent left, right, and center, losing all of its AI researchers, including the head of its who was the guy that the head of the models.
John G and Andrea.
I think, isn't he still there, or is he gone?
Yeah, he's
He
still
was,
there.
I think, promoted into the sky of a different project.
Promoted into the sky. Ah,
Well, they're losing talent left, right, and center apparently to Meta and Google and every other Anthropic and every other AI company, but they still want to develop something in house. This is the ambition apparently. So they will eventually replace this Google Gemini model for something that's been homegrown that they developed in house. In the meantime, a lot of Siri functions is going to be handled by Apple's own AI. So Bring it on. Let's see if them roll Gemini into this new version. And this is also coming in the spring, isn't it? It's going to be an exciting time running that 1.6 trillion, 1.2 trillion parameter model on your $600 MacBook. It'll be cool
It's
to
also worth
see.
remembering that Apple uses the name Siri for a bunch of different things that are completely unrelated, but just happen to all be voice controlled. So, saying Gemini is powering Siri, Gemini is probably going to power like a few different Siri things, like their general knowledge questions that currently it defers to ChatGPT. Those could be answered by Gemini. Gemini could be. I think Garmin says that Gemini will be powering the future versions of Siri that can like do actions on your behalf. Like it's the Gemini model that'll be choosing when you ask Siri, take a screenshot of this Safari web page and send it in Slack to this channel. Like it'll be Gemini that'll be parsing your request and piecing it out into the actions of, okay, this is how I take a screenshot. This is the shortcut function that I use to share it. This is how I send it to Slack, and then I'll plug into Slack's API that sends this thing. Gemini is going to be like the brain behind pushing all of those buttons behind the scenes to power the supposedly more capable version, and or probably the personal context thing. So when you ask it, Apple's canonical example of oh, when does my mom's flight land? It could be Gemini reading through your log of texts with your mother and your emails and, looking up the flight data to piece that answer together for you. But on the other hand, it could be Apple's own internal Siri things that answers the basic things that Siri already does, like, set a timer for this amount of time. I've said it too much. Now I'm triggering my phone. Apologies to the listeners, but it could still be the existing Apple voice assistant that does things like, how old is Jeff Bezos, or quick answers, that tools that it looks up answers for online. Or, when you ask it who won the Super Bowl in 1972, it could be the existing Siri model that will hopefully be a little better, but still answering those questions.
It kind of boggles my mind. Do you think why can't Apple develop its own models efficiently? Is it because they're losing all the talent, but they've all gone to Anthropic and to Meta?
I think it's just a very different skill set that Apple was caught flat-footed and didn't build up any like internal research or knowledge of in advance of ChatGPT in
I don't know though,
2022.
because they were integrating neural engines into Apple Silicon from the very get-go. AI already is already built into almost everything, all of Apple's
Mhm.
software, isn't there? I mean, or at least machine learning algorithms.
Yeah,
I find
Apple's been
it.
very good in machine learning, but the technology of large language models is a surprisingly new invention of like the mid 2010s, and it had only been developed into ChatGPT and like a chatbot product, in 2021 or 2022. So
Well, the people who developed transformers, which is one of the key technologies of LLMs, they're all good. There was like I think a dozen Google researchers, 8 to 12. I forget what the exact number, 8 to 12. None of those people are at Google anymore. Like a
mhm.
bunch of them went off to did their own startups, or they went to other companies. So Google has had its own brain drain, and yet
Mhm.
has somehow managed to stay ahead. I guess Apple. The rumors I heard is that Apple wasn't paying the insane, crazy salaries. Like they still rely on its halo effect. Like, oh, Apple, like I'd love to work at Apple. I don't care if I only
Mhm.
make a fraction of what everyone else is making. It's just an honor to be here at the spaceship campus and to see Tim Cook in the distance or whatever. I guess this is the rumors that seem to be circulating about Apple's problem in this area. But I think, like they were saying, one of the other things about this whole AI bubble at the moment is sort of mission. Like I think if you're promised all the money in the world, like Meta apparently is having trouble recruiting AI researchers because people don't want to work for Mark Zuckerberg. They don't want to work on Meta. Meta doesn't have this mission. It doesn't have a good mission.
Mhm.
Whatever AI they develop, it's obviously going to be snooping on people and it's going to be bad. I would have thought that Apple had that, that the sense of mission. Like if you're going to be working on Apple, you're going to be working on a responsible, privacy-focused AI that isn't going to burn the world down or sell you, spy on you to sell you more advertising. Like of all the people who are developing AI, wouldn't isn't Apple's AI probably one of the best ones to be working on if you have this sort of mission driven ethos?
People also like working on successful products, and I think Apple Intelligence has shown that Apple's a little behind in that regard.
Good point. Yeah, good point. Well, like Steve Jobs said, like A players, right? They want to they want to work with other A players, and maybe Apple doesn't have enough A players to attract other A players. They're all going to follow, Lacuna and other leading lights. It seems a bit of a shame that Apple's lagging in this area when everything else they're doing is like hitting all the marks just perfectly almost.
You remember when they killed the car project? And it was like, oh, we got to concentrate on AI, right? But it was like too late. They spent all this time trying to develop a car and money trying to develop a car, and then they just bailed on
10
it.
billion.
Kind of too late. It's like, I mean, it was probably a good idea
see-
that they concentrate on AI since it's the big thing right now. But I mean,
Well, Tim Cook said from the very early, even in the early stages, about the car project was actually the mother of all AI
right,
projects. He said, right?
right.
But so the two are so closely related that, and of course, I think they took most of the car team and rolled them over to concentrate on
Rolled them
AI. Yeah.
over.
Wheeled them down the hallway.
Yeah. Very weird. I mean, that would have to be. Wouldn't you think, like, if you went to join Apple to work on a car, and then suddenly it's like, oh no, we're going to have you like fix Siri. I mean, I think that would be a little bit demoralizing. So, did you see the part of that story where it said basically, Google and Apple, they're not going to be like shouting from the rooftops that Google is powering this stuff behind the scenes. They're going to kind of just make it seem like it's Apple, and then if Apple actually does get its AI game together, they can swap it out in the background. They don't have to tell anybody. And they still also might do the thing where they integrate Google Gemini in a very public way, like they do like right now with ChatGPT. So you could, Siri can hand off a question or a query, to Google Gemini instead of or in addition to ChatGPT. So
I can't imagine that it would be like some huge secret that they try to keep from everybody. I imagine that they're not going to be announcing a partnership and a keynote, but I imagine like it'll probably be exposed to developers in some way. So it's, we'll still be able to find out. And Apple would probably announce at like an upcoming, developer State of the Union as part of its WWDC. Oh yeah, in iOS 28, we're using an improved Apple Foundation model for this. And so here are new Apple Foundation model APIs that might silently replace other APIs in the background. Like I don't see this being like a big secret, but there won't be a Google Gemini logo underneath every Siri request either.
Well, they don't seem to be shy about advertising ChatGPT. I mean, that almost seems to be a selling point at the moment, isn't it? Oh, wow, ChatGPT integration. Yeah, look how great that is. So I don't know, and the Gemini model is well regarded. So maybe like Intel inside, you have a sticker,
I don't think
Gemini
so.
inside.
They're just going to say, hey, we fixed Siri. Siri's smart now. We told you it was going to be smart. Now it's smart. That's what they're going to say. They're not going to say it's smart because
Right.
we paid, Google. They're going to say it's smart and it's run on our own service. It's secure and smart. That's all they're going to say.
Let's talk about the next iPhone Air, which of course has been a giant bust, apparently, even though people love it. Although I'm not really sure though, like the stories every year, it's the cut production stories appears every single year, doesn't it? After the new
Right.
models are released, then about a month, 2 months later, you know, um, supply chain rumors say that Apple's cut production of this or that model. Well, they do that anyway. It's routine because they ramp up, don't they, and before the introduction to ensure that they have a lot of stock on ready and supply, and then they always ramp down production because there just isn't that much demand. But like Tim Cook said, I mean, in the recent earnings call, that he didn't mention, obviously he didn't say that the iPhone is a bust, but there was actually no indication whatsoever, was there, in anything he said that any of the one particular model was underperforming. Like he gave the impression, and of course I don't know, can you trust the man? But he gave the impression that everything was doing great. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
And he also said it's a problem Apple struggles with. They don't know which model is going to be popular before they start making them. And,
Yeah.
the production is such a long lead time that, they really don't know, how much to make of each one. The other perplexing thing about the iPhone Air, sorry, we're derailing the story before it's even started. Apple isn't advertising the iPhone Air. Does
yeah,
anybody
right.
even know about it? Like all of the pictures of billboards across the country are all, the big orange Pro that, and the big words Pro on it. All the TV ads are for the iPhone Pro. Has anybody, I mean, just a question to our listeners, has anybody seen an advertisement for an iPhone Air on TV or in public? I don't know. They're not advertised. Like I thought, I wrote in my review because, before this is really a thing, like, yeah, it seems like the iPhone Air wants to be Apple's flagship model this year because, they gave it the most attention during the keynote and all that, but Apple isn't treating it like that after its launch. They're not talking about it. Occasionally, I mean, in the Apple Store itself, you see a little poster that says Air, but where else do people hear about or see this phone?
They're sort of like iconographic treatment of Air, like they do with all these things. It's actually kind of hard to read. It's so thin, like the A and the I. The phone is the I and the R. Everything's so thin. It looks like like one of those sort of spidery aliens from a sci-fi movie or something. It just looks weird. It doesn't have much visual impact.
I wonder if they're going to have a campaign, in this holiday season, because wouldn't it be the sort of ideal phone to advertise during the holidays? It's potentially a gift, it's
Yeah.
like you said, the flagship device.
I think it'd be an amazing gift to give someone. I think that when somebody opens that thing, they're actually going to be like stunned and amazed.
Right.
And I also think that it would be a great phone for a lot of people to have. The biggest reaction I got from non-techie friends when they saw me using the iPhone Air during the 2 weeks I had it was, oh, I like how it doesn't have 3 cameras on the back. They don't care about the advanced camera features. They want a phone that looks good. And the iPhone Air is the best looking phone they've made in a long time.
Well, nice little segue there. Why don't we talk about the cameras? Yeah.
Yeah. So the ultra-thin iPhone Air drew a lot of attention when it launched for its remarkably sleek design. However, in one possible improvement, Apple is, quote, considering adding a new camera lens to what they refer to as the iPhone 18 Air. It would pair a 48 megapixel main camera with a 48 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, according to Chinese leaker Digital Chat Station on Weibo. The leaker noted that, quote, a telephoto lens would be even better, and I definitely agree, though the current plans apparently don't include one. I know a lot of people who would much rather prefer the telephoto lens to the ultra wide lens. Like, I very rarely use the ultra wide lens on my phone. Honestly, it's more annoying. More often than I intentionally take an ultra wide picture, I have to turn off the irritating macro mode that happens when you try to get too close on the 1x lens without focusing. And if I were actually upgrading this year, the biggest problem I would have would be choosing between the iPhone Air and the iPhone 17 Pro, because the 17 Pro has that excellent telephoto lens that can go up between 4 and 8x, optical quote unquote quality zoom. You don't get that on the iPhone Air. You don't have any zoom in beyond 2x.
Well, the question is, where are they going to stick another camera lens? Like you said, your friends all like the fact that it only has one camera lens. You have the plateau there, the camera plateau, which is, like basically lens, and then the rest of it is filled with the motherboard and all the other chips to power the device. Can they possibly could they add another lens and while at the same time shrinking all of the guts into that camera plateau?
I mean, that's a good point. Like the camera sticks out farther on the iPhone Air because they have all the extra components sort of behind it. Whereas on older iPhones, the camera itself would take up the entire thickness of the inside of that part of the phone. And I was wondering if they're adding a second lens, would they then switch it to a more like entry-level iPhone 17 inspired design where they're on top of each other, like down the height of the phone? But according to the same leak, the second generation iPhone Air will retain its core design element, the 6.5-inch display and the horizontal runway-shaped camera plateau. And I think the picture in the top of the article from that leaker where they would be side by side across the top of the phone, not stacked on top of each other, going towards the volume buttons on the side, which is interesting. They would have to compress the internal components even further to make a second camera lens fit there. I sort of assume that the only reason the iPhone Air's plateau is shaped the way it is because it only has a single camera lens up there. I would assume if they were adding more cameras to that design, that it would get a plateau that's exactly like the iPhone 17 Pro. They would add a camera below it, and then the plateau would just get larger. Maybe they think that would make it too top heavy, and that's why they're going for the two lenses side by side. I don't know.
it would definitely detract from the whole Air design, wouldn't it? I mean, because then it would
Mhm.
be Air with a big fat plateau like a Pro.
I mean, there were, I think, other rumors that saying that the iPhone Air next year would have a slightly different design, but nobody really explained how. I guess this would explain it.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to CarPlay. There's some movements in the CarPlay world. The golden age of CarPlay may be ending, which is tragic, to be honest. It's a troubling sign for Apple enthusiasts. General Motors announced that new vehicles from the automotive giant will no longer support CarPlay or its Android component. So GM's moving to its own software in its cars. And this isn't just GM making an odd choice. It signals a fundamental shift in how automakers view the relationship between the car and your phone. By cutting Apple out as a middleman, GM creates opportunities to charge for services that CarPlay currently provides for free. And this, of course, is the crux of the matter, charging for services. GM replacement system requires its own data plan, starting at $10 monthly to access the full software suite. So there you go, another subscription for you.
Hmm.
Well, the company promises 8 years of free service for new EV buyers. The long-term strategy is clear. Your car's features are going to become another subscription on your credit card statement. And it's not just CarPlay. Popular services like Apple Podcasts and Apple Music are missing. More fundamentally, you'll have to learn a new system rather than using the iPhone interface you already know. So Tesla and Rivian have never offered CarPlay, betting on their own proprietary systems. And other manufacturers are locking previously standard features behind paywalls. Toyota now charges subscriptions for navigation tools that CarPlay provides for free. One of the car companies charges you for remote unlocking, right? I think now. And
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
BMW charge for heat seaters or something crazy?
Hmm.
I think this is clearly anti-consumer. Surveys, what are surveys like? If people, the top feature, number one top feature of most all new car buyers is CarPlay or Android Auto. More often than not, CarPlay. I think it's like 70% or something like that, or even higher, 78% of new car buyers wouldn't consider a car without CarPlay.
I think it was in the 90s, honestly.
Was it? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
mad. So research shows that only 28% of US consumers would switch to native systems if smartphone integration were unavailable. The car companies, the money is just too good to ignore. They're leaving a lot of money on the table. I think this is an absolute tragedy, isn't it? Like CarPlay is by far the best infotainment system that you can get, and I love it. I just like, it's almost just a pleasure just to have the 3D maps up as you're driving around the city, and you can just follow the map as you go. Of course, the music as well, the integration, all the apps. I mean, I stream BBC Radio all the time from my phone to CarPlay while I'm driving along, which I don't think, I don't know if these car manufacturers are going to open up their own systems to third-party apps. Probably if they can charge for it. But yeah, I haven't seen I mean, the homegrown systems of cars are just awful. The software was just terrible. I don't know if anyone. I think GM. I remember saying that it was getting some praise for its new software system suite. That it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but still, it's no CarPlay.
Yeah. And I think I also saw earlier this week that GM is already cutting off the oldest cars on their current system after only 5 years. So, like, people keep cars longer than 5 years. It's ridiculous. Just build in CarPlay. I mean,
Right.
I think the whole idea of, oh well, we're leaving money on the table by giving all of this over to Apple and Android and Google. But the thing is, that whole thing is built on a false premise because they're imagining if we build this all ourselves, we can charge our own subscription prices. People aren't going to pay them. I'm very confident people aren't going to pay them. Why do I need a whole separate like system of podcasts and music just for my car? My phone has everything.
It's increasingly important, though, isn't it? The software suite in the car, the entertainment stuff, and they have handed it over to Apple at the moment. No one has any touches on any GM software or GM services at all if you have CarPlay or Android Auto. So
Mhm.
they are giving, like I saw a quote, I think, from the CEO of Rivian, who said, why would we let these invaders right inside? Why would we invite them and right inside the house? He was completely incredulous, that any other car manufacturer would even consider CarPlay and Android Auto. I mean, to him, it's just fundamentally mad that they would let the brains of the car be given to another company. So, you can definitely see their kind of point of view. But of course, I think for a consumer, it's just you're caught between a rock and a hard place. Like I would much rather have Android CarPlay.
They would invite those people in because that's what people want and that's what people want to buy. I imagine if GM announces these plans, I think I heard a report that a lot of GM dealerships were furious at GM headquarters for announcing that their war on CarPlay, because how many people do they have to turn away when people come in for a car and they're like, oh, how do I access CarPlay on this Chevy Equinox? It doesn't have it. Okay, goodbye. A lot of people are just going to walk away.
Well, but it looks like it's going to come to the point though where all the manufacturers are going to switch away from CarPlay and Android Auto. So like it's not putting GM at the moment. GM is stands out, and like you said, maybe people will shop around for a different vehicle, but eventually, I mean, I'm fairly soon probably. It won't be offered. It'll all be native systems from all the manufacturers,
I
all the
don't
major
think
car
I've heard
manufacturers.
much about a lot of other manufacturers abandoning CarPlay. I'll be honest. I mean, yeah, Tesla and Rivian have never had it. They're but you're buying a weird vehicle when you buy a Tesla or a Rivian anyways. Like those are unique, newfangled EVs. People already know they're getting something unusual. I don't think Honda or Hyundai or Toyota or anything. I don't think any other major manufacturer has announced plans to walk away from like at least original CarPlay. And in fact, there's a number of manufacturers who are still on the short list of companies who are getting CarPlay Ultra. I guess probably some of the few that I mentioned, Hyundai and Honda, at least I remember them being on the list.
Yeah, I wonder if the CarPlay Ultra is what really freaked out the car manufacturers because of course it goes even deeper into the car's systems and can display all kinds of internal data, gas consumption and stuff like that. So it's taking over even more functions. Maybe that was what scared them
Right.
when Apple was trying to roll this out.
Biggest thing for me is, I mean, I use it all the time, but when I go to a rental car that doesn't have CarPlay, I just feel lost. And then you have to start trying to, like, literally lost, but also just figuratively, like what's going on here? How do I do anything? How do I listen to music? How do I look at a map? How do I do anything? And that's one thing that's so awesome about CarPlay is that you take your phone with you, you get in any car, it works. And
Right.
that's I,
Familiar interface, yeah.
I mean, God, I had to use a couple of non-CarPlay cars on a recent trip, and it was just terrible. Just absolutely terrible. And one of them had like, I don't know, what was it, like Garmin mapping, right? Remember Garmin? I think it was Garmin. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
I'll try.
Garmin.
I was like trying to use that. I looked like I was playing a video game from like 1990 or 86 or something. It's not even that new, like 1976. It was like lines on a screen. I was like, what is going on here? I really, really missed CarPlay, and it made me wonder, like maybe the thing to do is buy one of those little portable ones that you can set on the dash and take that with you when you travel and rent a car. I mean, they cost like 80 or $100. I mean, I would have. There was one point driving through southern Italy, like trying desperately to get to a hotel. I would have paid $100 right then to have that CarPlay on my dashboard because
Or just, a MagSafe phone mount. Just stick that to the AC vent and just put your actual phone up there.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
the problem with that is it's so small, and I guess you could run the audio through the, if you had the right cable, you could run the audio through the probably into the aux of the thing. But oh God, just it's so much simpler when you just can plug in your phone, or better yet, wireless CarPlay. I don't know if you have wireless CarPlay.
I've used a car with wireless
That
CarPlay.
is
One of
awesome.
my close friends has wireless CarPlay.
You just get in and boom, it works. I mean, that is luxurious feeling.
Yeah, I've got one of those wireless CarPlay screens, and because none of our vehicles support CarPlay natively, so yeah, I've got screens actually in all three of our cars, and yeah, they're great. They're fantastic. You plug them into the aux jack, plug them into the cigarette charging port. The only problem is like leaving them in the car in San Francisco is not a good idea. So unfortunately, you have to sort of take them down and stash them every time you get in and out of the car, which is a bit of a pain. But yeah, they're great. They're fantastic. They really, really work really well.
If these car companies do drop CarPlay, that's what people are going to do. They're just going to, because it's not even like difficult. If you look at like what I had to do is I yanked out my, well, I paid somebody to yank out my existing car stereo, right, and replace it with a CarPlay head. But these other things are just they're just portable. It's super cheap and super easy. That's what people will do rather than paying $10 a month to use some garbage, first original party
Yeah.
software. They're
And
just
it doesn't have your calendar appointments. It doesn't know where you're going to go. It doesn't have your address book. It doesn't have your contacts. It doesn't have anything. Why would people pay money for a worse system
right.
when they've
Yeah.
already been, shown the light?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And what actually, like it's going to absolutely be a huge investment to be able to run a decent infotainment system like to rival CarPlay. I mean, like you said, there's so much involved in it. They're never going to be able to compete with Apple, are they ever? Let's move on to our next sponsor, Factor.
It's always a beautiful day when a big box of Factor foods appear on your step. It's funny. We were talking about this before the show. Like, what do they have? And I just went and looked at their menus, and my God, I'm sitting here drooling, looking at these pictures. These delicious food, like potato leek mash and grilled chicken with roasted corn and zucchini saute. Oh my God, these meals look amazing. Roasted garlic chicken with gravy, chive Yukon mash, and green beans. And one of the things that's amazing about Factor, I mean, you can order all kinds of food. You can order, with specific diet types, like if you're on keto diet or you carnivore diet, or they have a surprising number of vegetables in them, which I think is awesome because I don't like cooking vegetables, and I don't even like a lot of vegetables, but they're good in these dishes. There are a lot of things that have like zucchini and broccoli and things like that kind of mashed up in some kind of crazy way into a delicious like side dish. Fantastic. And I think as a person who actually really likes to cook, the thing that I am most amazed by these things, they show up, they're never frozen. You put them in the microwave and nothing's overcooked. Like the chicken is as juicy as you can imagine it being. Like, and if it can be difficult to cook a chicken breast as juicy as this thing ends up being. Eat smart at factormeals.com/cultcast50off and use code CultCast50off to get 50% off your first box plus, get this, free breakfast for 1 year. That's code CultCast50off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Which won't be a hard call because once you get these things, you're going to be like, this is great. I love having this delivered to my house. I love how easy it is to eat some delicious food that's actually good for me, so...
Griffin, let's rush through this. 5 new features in iOS 26 you don't want to miss.
So yeah, iOS 26.1 was released earlier this week on Monday. I guess as a small point of comparison, I still don't think this is the software update that Apple is like automatically pushing to everybody still on iOS 18, which is kind of curious. They might be waiting for 18.2, but I will say 26.1 is much more stable than 26.0. A lot of bug fixes across all their operating systems, really. And a number of new features as well. I think we've talked about this a little bit on the show. In iOS 26.1, Apple introduces a new translucency setting for liquid glass. In settings, display and brightness, there's a new option for liquid glass where you can choose between clear or tinted. We might have exaggerated the difference between the two in previous episodes of the show, like overselling it as Apple losing its, where's its conviction on liquid glass? The tinted style doesn't remove liquid glass. It makes the light UI a little whiter and the dark UI a little blacker, but it doesn't like remove all of its translucent effects. You can still see the background warping through the interface if it's colorful enough. I have like a comparison picture of my article of like a picture in the Photos app that's filling the screen. And you can see in the clear one, the buttons are barely visible. And in the tinted one, yeah, the buttons are a lot more opaque, but you can still see like the warping effects between them. It's even more obvious in motion because you can see all the things, translucently waving through it. But yeah, and the tinted option is still not the most, if you don't like it at all, there's still the separate accessibility option of reduced transparency, and that makes everything like solid colors and all that. But tinted is a new middle ground appearance you can choose if you...
It's more like toning it down rather than turning it off.
I saw somebody ridiculing it, the way that it displays notifications when you have it set like that. They described it as orthopedic. Like it's so like, well, like just describe it like an accessibility feature. So I don't know.
Yeah, in light mode, it maybe overcorrects a little bit on making notifications translucent, opaque. There's a new gesture if you use the Apple Music app that makes it easy to skip and rewind tracks. When your phone is unlocked, you can swipe your finger on the little track title in the little mini player at the bottom, or on the full now playing screen. You can swipe your finger on the title to either skip forward or go backwards. Might be easier if you're in the car than, precisely pointing your finger and tapping the fast forward button. So that's kind of neat. There's a new interface on the lock screen when an alarm or a timer goes off. Instead of having a stop button, you have a little stop slider that you have to sort of slide to stop, kind of like the slide to unlock on an iPhone. That's kind of interesting.
Why is everyone
I
making
guess
a big fuss about this? Like this kind of like when this, first people got wind of it. I was like, oh wow, yeah, look at this amazing new interface on the alarm. I guess the old alarm interface must have upset people so much that this change was like a big something to
the
celebrate.
old alarm had equally sized buttons for snooze and stop. And I think the concern was that if you're only half awake and you're just sort of like slapping at your phone, you might accidentally stop the alarm, meaning to snooze it or just silence it. And this new one makes sure that you have to be a little more awake to be able to stop the alarm.
But always preference snoozing over stop. Like the snooze button's much bigger than the stop button, so it was. I always found that a little puzzling. I thought it was always kind of backwards.
It seems like that's the way it should be. I mean, you want it to be easy to snooze. You don't necessarily want it to be easy to turn off because of all the reasons Griffin
Yeah,
just mentioned. I haven't seen this yet on the
right.
iPhone. I tend to, I get the alarm on the watch. That's where I look at it. I don't even reach for the phone. So,
Or if you're in standby, you don't see this. You don't see this interface either.
oh,
Or if you don't wake up
yeah,
with an alarm, which is what I do. I just sort of wake up whenever I wake up. But
Ohioans.
yeah.
Well, I wake up at precisely the same time every day too. Like it doesn't matter what happens. I
3
always wake up
a.m.
at the same time. So
You go right to the gym. Just
yeah,
like, yeah,
right.
fist bump Tim Cook on the way.
But I mentioned this because you don't want to encounter it for the first time when you're angrily trying to turn off your phone. Like that's how it works, everybody. Make sure you learn before you update your phone and you wake up at 5 a.m. Here's a new setting I didn't know I wanted. In settings, and you go to camera, you can scroll down to the bottom and disable lock screen swipe to open camera. This disables the feature where you can, swipe left on your lock screen to switch to the camera app. This is a problem I had with the old pair of pants that I used to wear. The pocket lining was really thin. And so my phone would accidentally open the camera, like just from my thigh, touching my thigh all the time. And I would pull my phone out of my pocket and see, oh, my phone is burning hot, the battery is dead, and I've been recording video 4K 60 resolution of the inside of my pocket for 20 minutes.
iPhone storage full.
Yeah, yeah. But, now that I have the camera control, or you can even, still use the camera button on the lock screen, you can disable the swipe. And I immediately checked that or unchecked that feature. So that's excellent. And of course, slide over made its return on the iPad. So it's been reinvented to be congruous with their multitasking windowing system. It's now a feature where you can make any window a slide over window by tapping and holding on like the green window button. You tap enter slide over, and it's no longer limited to being like really tall and skinny. You can resize it as big as you want or as tiny as you want. And in another sort of benefit, there's no more complicated separate app switcher for slide over. You can just bring one window into slide over or take it out. You can still swipe it off the edge or bring it in from the side of the screen if you want. But of course, I don't own an iPad, so I don't know what it's like living with these things. Have either of you tried the new slide over?
Mr. iPad himself, Ed Hardy, one of our writers, he loves it, and he wrote a how to about how to use it and an appreciation of it. He's a big fan. He thinks it's a really good system.
I understand you're deferring to Ed because you haven't used it yourself, Leander.
Right, exactly.
I don't have an iPad that'll run the latest version of the software, so
Oh wow.
why upgrade?
Thrilling discussion we've had. iPad slide over.
We can drop
Yeah, yeah.
drop Ed's post in the show notes because it was
Will do.
quite a good appreciation of it.
Oh, so that's 26.1, and the 26.2 beta is already out as well. So new features in that we'll probably talk about in the future.
20 features, right? And 26.1, 20 new features or thereabouts, 20 tweaks.
Yes, and if you'd like the full comprehensive list, I have an article and a video on that I will also link in the show notes.
So we have a fun new game from
In
Griffin.
quotes.
Yeah, fun new game. Let's test it out. Let's see how it goes. Griffin, what's your game?
We are going to do a little bit of Apple Mad Libs. So what I've done is I've taken one of the product announcement posts, a real an article that we have on Cult of Mac, and I've taken out a lot of the keywords from the intro, and we're going to reinvent a new Apple product announcement article in Mad Libs. This is a segment that I've shamelessly stolen from a different non-tech podcast, Mad Libs. So we're going to write this
I
article
hate to say
ourselves.
it, I'm not familiar with Mad Libs.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you for a number of words, and then we're going to fill in the blanks, and then we're going to come up with some absolute nonsense, probably. So I need one of the two of you. Maybe you can take turns. Give me the name of a city, any city.
Sun City.
Sun City. Okay. Give me a country.
Italy.
Italy. How about an adjective?
Garlicky. Still looking at the Factor Meals page.
Okay. Another adjective.
Leander, if you don't do it, I've got one.
I can't think of anything.
Creamy.
Okay.
Lander, maybe you could do this one. Give me a number.
7,
7. Okay. Another number.
3.
Give me an organ.
Organ.
Liver.
Heart.
Oh.
Oh, liver's good.
I like liver. And give me an activity.
Darts.
Okay. Another adjective.
Sauteed.
All cooking ones.
I can't but take my eyes off the Factor Meals page.
Give me a plural noun.
Horses.
Another adjective.
How about
Ripping.
rainy? Would you say
Okay.
dripping or ripping?
Ripping.
I like dripping. Give me
Dripping
a
on.
superlative.
Best.
Okay. A first name.
Leander.
A last name.
Wallace.
Okay. Give me a rank.
Rank.
Yeah, a rank.
Sergeant.
Like fifth or lieutenant.
Sergeant. That works.
Leander, you're supposed to say lieutenant.
That's true.
Oh, am I? I've been here too long.
Give me a college degree.
Philosophy.
Philosophy. How about an exclamation? Anything you would yell.
Yikes. Yikes.
Thought for sure it was going to be crikey.
How about
Should have
a number?
Another number?
Yep.
11.
Okay. And one more number.
43.
Month of the year.
Heavens to
January.
Betsy. This is getting long.
Sorry, only two more. Give me a relative period of time, like next week, next year, last Tuesday.
I thought you meant like Paleozoic era.
Yeah. I don't know. Last August.
Okay. And finally, you're going to give me a color.
Purple.
Green. Ah!
Green.
I got green from the Factor page again.
Lewis said it louder, so
It's the
I'm going
color of
with
the
green.
beans.
Now I'm going to paste this in our show notes, and you're going to read it out for me, Lewis.
Oh, God.
Tell us about the new AirPods.
So it starts out with Dateline, Sun City, Italy, which I think is... Was this generated by ChatGPT?
This is generated by you.
Apple gave a garlicky update to its creamy wireless earbuds, launching AirPods Pro 7. The new buds have 3-hour battery life and add liver monitoring and live darts. I can't wait for this.
Finally.
With sautéed audio performance and entirely new horses, I think AirPods Pro are truly dripping, said Apple CEO Tim Cook. These are my best AirPods ever, said Leander Wallace, Apple's sergeant of hardware philosophy. This announcement came at Apple's Yikes event. The new AirPods Pro cost $11.43 and will be available starting January 19. Pre-orders will open last August. Okay, well, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, kind of funny how that turned out.
Wow.
The liver monitoring is not a bad idea.
Is that kind of what you're expecting, Griffin?
Yep. Apple's Yikes event. You know, Tim Cook saying AirPods Pro are truly dripping does kind of sound like one of the ways they try to Gen Z up their marketing. So,
And I like creamy wireless earbuds. That's actually that's not so far off.
yeah.
Yikes event. Pre-orders will open last August. That sounds about right too.
You know, you replaced the superlative best was actually exactly what was in the quote before. These are
really?
my best AirPods ever.
That's too bad.
Did you take this from one of our stories then and made some blanks or?
This was the lead to my AirPods Pro 3 article. I just took out a bunch of the words. Light editing, but it's pretty much the intro to that article.
So where did you get this idea from? Which podcast did you steal
This was
it
a
from?
podcast called Aaron is the Funny One, where they do Mad Libs as a way of writing horoscopes at the end of each episode. And I thought, that could be a fun idea we can steal.
Try it for a product announcement. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay.
I'm excited to see the horses coming to AirPods Pro 7.
Live darts.
Why don't we ask them? Yeah, let's ask the readers. What do you think of this segment? Should we try this again? Please let us know.
Or should we
give us a
never do it
comment.
again?
Yeah, let's see.
Is it a fun new game or a fun new game?
Right. I think that about wraps it up. My wife's been calling, so I better get going. Yeah, no. So here we are. So thanks very much for signing off in Sun City, Arizona. That's all the CultCast we have for you this week. If you want more, Lewis is on Twitter at Lewis Wallace. Griffin's on Mastodon, if you've ever heard of that, at D. Griffin Jones. And I write the Cultamac Today newsletter, which I better get on with shortly at newsletters.cultamac.com. So if you wanna weigh in on the Mad Libs game, send us a text using a link at the top of the show notes or in the YouTube comments, or ask questions for the show. Questions are always good. That's been the CultCast, the best hour-long Apple conversation you're going to hear all week long. New episodes of the CultCast come out every Thursday evening. So thanks very much, everybody, for listening. We'll see you all next time. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Goodbye.
Yikes!
All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, we better definitely have to wrap it up. Did you hear the phone ringing down?
Yeah,
Yeah.
one time.
I can edit it out.
Oh, cool. Did you hear the toilets? I was creaking a couple of times. A lot of times just in my way.
Didn't really hear
The
it.
thing creaked.
Just when you almost fell off.